Good morning and a good Erev Shabbos. This coming week's Parsha is another double Parsha. Before we say what Parsha it is, a big, huge mazel tov to Chaim Reed, whose Bar Mitzvah Parsha is Parshiyos Kedoshim. And we celebrated his birthday in Yeshiva last Thursday, even though his birthday was on Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Should have many happy birthdays in the future. You should be zeicha, lahagdil teri la'adir. You should continue being a nachas to us and Gans Klal Yisrael. This is Parshiyos Achrei Mos and Kedoshim. It's another double parsha. Last week was Tazria Mitzayra, Achrei Mos-Kedoshim, and next week we have an off Shabbos, not in Shiva, but not a double parsha. We have Parshas Emor. Achrei Mos-Kedoshim are really packed, and there's really a lot to talk about. So instead of one shmooze today, I'm going to give about 12, and then Be'ez Hashem, a few minutes before Shabbos, we are going to enjoy ourselves. Be'ez Hashem, that we're going to go into Shabbos. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Milstein gave a beautiful shir, a platter last night, and for all the 17 that I wish I could say, a person should listen to that intently and clearly and see if you got a shout out during the shir. I want to touch on one specific point in this week just for a few minutes. In Perek Ches, Pasuk Gimel, the Pasuk says a very surprising halacha. Very surprising. I'll give it a small introduction to it. Many of us, perhaps all of us, many of us have a background that our grandparents, great-grandparents were Holocaust survivors. Or at least were from those countries where they were forced to run away. And I was saying all of us are from countries that we were forced to run away from. Whether it was like my family, my grandparents were from Poland and Hungary, and they had to run away from those countries. My grandfather's from Czechoslovakia. He had to run away from his country. But it was really all countries. You have people who came from Russia, Russian background, or Belarus, or people who might have come from Morocco, or people who came from Syria. All around the world, the Jewish people have been really kicked out of a whole bunch of places. There's no shortage of places that have expelled us from their lands. Even the places that you'd imagine are like the real. I'm sure at least they never kicked us out. Perhaps the only country that has not kicked the Jews out is China, but a large country. But as of yet. But the countries around the world, England expelled all of its Jews in the year 1290. That's a long time. The first time the Jews were able to come back was in the mid-1600s. The Jews were able to come back to England, and that was only because of very wealthy Jews who the British government wanted to do business with, so they let them back into the country. But aside from that, you couldn't live in England. Obviously, my great ancestors, they were kicked out of Spain. They had to move to Italy. I was very fortunate. I'm a descendant of a woman named Donna Grazia Mendez Nasi. She was a very wealthy woman in the 1500s, and she facilitated a lot of the Jews to escape from Spain. But we're talking about our people have been run out of a lot of countries. I think it's obvious if you had just been kicked out of a certain country, let's say it was Germany. A Jew is living in Germany and he had to run away. And then he goes to a store and he goes there and it's like not such a nice, it's like Gap. Gap still exists? Gap, okay. He goes, JCPenney doesn't anymore. But Gap doesn't, maybe it does, I don't know. I'm sorry, JCPenney. But a person goes to the Gap and he goes to a rack of t-shirts, and one of the t-shirts he sees there, and he just got kicked out of Germany and had to run away. It says, I love Germany on it, right? With the I and the heart, Germany, or ich hab lieb der Deutschland, something like that. It's I really love Germany. Yeah, would you buy that? It's probably the last thing in the world. You probably would not just buy. Maybe you would buy just to burn it. I remember when I was younger, I was very curious about this type of stuff. I was reading all these different books. So I went to Barnes & Noble in Park Slope. That's where they have a nice Barnes & Noble over here. They say Barnes & Noble now is just a nice big bathroom, because nobody really reads books. But I went to Barnes & Noble, and I bought Mein Kampf from Hitler, Yamach Shemai V'Zikri. Back then, you see how different the culture is. I brought it to the front counter. Oh, I was curious, like, what's this all about? I brought it to the front counter, and the liberal guy behind the counter said, "Don't you know what this is? How can you buy this?" And I pointed at my yarmulke. I said, I know what this is. Thank you very much. The difference is that nowadays, buy 10 more copies if it was the liberal guy behind the counter. But I remember I bought it with me. I took the book. Don't worry, Hitler Yamach Shemai is not getting any royalties from the book anymore. But I got the book. I read a little bit. It was really, really disgusting stuff. I did not finish the whole book. And then I had a book burning. I brought it out to the backyard, and I lit that book on fire. Okay, Baruch Hashem. But if a person goes, you probably wouldn't buy a book that says, like, would you imagine your family go back, "I love Stalin"? Would they buy that? Don't cut and paste that. But would they buy that? Of course they wouldn't buy that. Yet there's a very funny pasuk. The Jewish people have come out of Mitzrayim very recently, and the pasuk says, okay, this is Parak Yirches, pasuk Gimel. Kimase Eretz Mitzrayim asher yishavtem ba lo yisasu. Don't act like the Egyptians. Don't act like the Egyptians. Uchemase Eretz Canaan asher ani mevi eschem shama lo yisasu. And like the non-Jews who you heard about how disgusting, horrible, and terrible they are, and you're bound to join them in Canaan, don't act like them either. Okay, I think that was a pretty easy one, no? Don't act like the Nazis. And the Nazis you're about to meet, don't act like them either. Every time I do see, unfortunately, people make a joke about it. So every time people raise up their hands in a certain type of salute, don't do that. Don't do that one. I don't need to be convinced twice not to do that. I think it's pretty simple, pretty obvious. A person wouldn't do that. You just lived with the Egyptians for all of these years. And the pasuk finishes with the magnificent words, and do not follow along their statutes, their policies. Don't copy them. All the non-Jews, don't copy them. Why in the world would I ever want to copy an Egyptian? You hear the good question, David? Why would I want to copy them? They're evil, horrible, disgusting people, despicable. Remember by Shiras Hayam, when the Jewish people went through the Yam Suf, they saw all the people who had done terrible things to them getting their just reward, their exact punishment that they deserved. And now I'm going to dress like them. I'm going to talk like them. I'm going to do a hairstyle like them. Not in a million years. Why does there have to be a pasuk in the Torah telling you, Kimasi Eretz Mitzrayim, loy asher yishavtem ba lo yisasu? Why would I ever copy them? And I want to keep it short and to the point, because it's a very, very obvious answer. The obvious answer is in 3 words in this pasuk. You know why you're going to copy them? Asher yeshavtem ba. Because you live with them. Because you lived with them. When you live with someone else, whether you hate them or love them, you're going to end up copying them. Whether it's despicable and horrible and disgusting, asher yeshavtem ba. You live with them, you're going to copy them. And if a person is living in Nazi Germany, a person will copy the Nazis. I'm not saying he's going to brutalize Jews, but he will do things which are identifiably related to the Nazis. If a person is living in a country that is a despicable, disgusting culture, you will copy them. It is very famous. In the 1950s, I don't remember, it was 53, 52, when Stalin died, Jewish men and women cried. They cried. This man had killed millions of Jews, tens of millions of people. And the Jewish men and women cried that Daddy died. Their father died. Stalin, the father. How can you cry about that? You knew what he did to your whole family. You have been trying to run and hide from him for the last 40 years. How can you be crying about that? Because Kemasi Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yoshavtem Ba, you live amongst them. Lo Yisasu, you want to act like them, whether you know it or not. You're going to copy them. There's a culture out there, and whether you like it or not, we get easily influenced by it. And we can think about it in the three classic ways that the Torah talks about how the Jews did not copy the Egyptians when they were there. In the way they spoke, how a Jew speaks. It wasn't so long ago when we were younger people, there was, even on television, which used to exist, on television, I would say, it's not when I was younger, but before me, you couldn't say the word pregnant on television. You couldn't say the word pregnant on television. That's how clean, in a certain sense, the airways were. And then at least there were limitations. They're almost giving up on the Motion Picture Association of America, of their rating agency. There's really almost no need for anymore. Because everything now would automatically have the worst possible rating. That's how it is. The way that a person speaks is not even judged in the rating of television, of movies anymore. There's no reason to do it. That's just how people speak at this point. Why not let everybody hear it if that's how everyone talks? Kimasi Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yoshavtem Ba says that if you're living in America, don't think it's your own geniosity, your own idea that came forward that I should speak in a certain way. You are, and me, and we all are influenced by our society to lack control in these decisions unless we are consciously fighting against it. If we are consciously aware of using inappropriate language and what society is trying to get us to do, and we say, no, that's not from me, that's not from my parents, that's not from my grandparents, that's not my nature, I'm just copying everyone at this point, you'd protect yourself. It has to be conscious the other way. The way you dress, of course, the way we dress. At this point, it's hardly a person, including myself. You look in the mirror, there's going to be something in the mirror. I remember I was once listening to the Mashgiach, Rav Brevda, Zakheim Levracha, and he was saying that look in the mirror at some point. When you look in the mirror, look simply at the way you dress. Which are from you and which are from society? Which the things that you're wearing is actually because you decided. I mean, look at this tie. When I was younger, this tie is a thin tie now. When I was younger, it was wider. Why am I wearing a thin tie right now? Why am I not wearing the wider tie? If I go into my father's closet right now, we still have all of his ties. If I have all of those ties are big, fat, wide ties. Where'd they go? Why am I wearing a thin tie? It's because Kimasi Eretz Mitzrayim, Kimasi Eretz America, Asher Yoshavtem Ba, Zakheim is doing it now. It wasn't conscious. It just, well, that looks better now. Why? Why did that something look better? I remember I had Mashgiach, a fisherman in Eretz Yisrael, which lived be well. He said he has two pairs of glasses. I might have mentioned this before. He has two pairs of glasses. He has thin glasses and big glasses. So why does he have two pairs? He said because every 5 years it switches back and forth. So he just leaves it in his drawer, it's clean, and then when he comes back, he switches back and forth for the style that they're up to. These glasses that you're wearing right now, they look wonderful. They're great glasses. You look very handsome in these glasses. You look great. But in the end of the day, these glasses were very popular in the 1960s. And they were. I'm not knocking it. They were very popular, and so were those in the 1960s. The round, thicker glasses. Not too long ago, having any rim was embarrassing, right? You can't have glasses with a rim. It had to only be a metallic thing and then just the lenses. But it's changed. Kimase, the way that you dress, I'm telling you, look in the mirror and say, what is different about me? What is the way that I'm dressing that is a Jew? The Taz says, the commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, the Torah, the Taz says, if you're not wearing a yarmulke on your head, you're violating, besides violating, this very passage, a non-Jew, you look in the mirror, at the very least, your yarmulke is the one thing nowadays that you know is from us. And the cardinals. But no, it's from us. They're copying us, it's okay. But we have to be able to look back. I can't be influenced in everything. There has to be something left of me inside of me. What is me? These shoes, these socks, the suit, the tie. What's me? This funny looking beard? At least that the funny looking beard. I don't think they copied that one yet. But what is me? I will mention, I had a little letdown. When I started growing my beard, so somebody came up to me and they said, "Oh, you're getting into this style." I said, "What style?" Right then, it had become popular for people to start growing beards. Non-Jews, they started growing beards. Never. Maybe that was the reason I started growing a beard. And now I make sure it's as ugly as possible, so it shouldn't look like it was any influence. Although now I think they're into the ugly beard. Okay, I don't know. What can I do? I'm such a trendsetter. But the point is the three things: the way that you talk, the way that you dress, and of course, how you're described. What are you called? I was talking to a dear friend of mine yesterday. He was looking through his telephone. Maybe I was looking through his telephone. But he was looking through his phone, and one of the contacts he has there is Rat. Rat was one of his friends' names. I hope it's a relative, but I don't even know. I don't know what I hope. But one of the relatives said, "No, it's like an old joke, Rat." Okay, I think that's an extreme example. But we use a name. A name is so valuable. One of the things that bothers me a lot is that people nowadays don't even know who they're named after. Some people are not named after someone specific, and there was a reason your parents were inspired. I have a daughter. Her name is Nechama Liba. The reason we named her Nechama Liba, we named her Nechama because my father was very sick and we wanted her to be a Nechama for the family. We added Leib, Brevda, and then Nechama Liba, we put it all together. It was the name of a big tzaddik, it's the Alter of Kelm's daughter. But they're right, there's a reason why you got that name. You're named after your grandfather, right? A very special person, great-grandfather. You're named after someone. Meir is named after, his middle name, after a tremendous tzaddik of Amnon Yitzchak, Meir Yitzchak, named after Amnon Yitzchak. Try to think about where your names come from. It was a tzaddik. Try to think about where your names come from. The value of a Jewish name. It's unique, it's special, it's iconic. I'll finish just with this one quick, very cute story, I hope. When my grandfather was nifter, that part's not the cute part, but when my grandfather was nifter, I was running the house, the Shiva house. I was younger. And my father was sitting Shiva, so I answered all the phones. I was really, really bored. A lot of times during the day, there was nothing going on. It was Ben Ismanim, so there was really nothing going on. And there was a telemarketer called the house, and as you know, I enjoy telemarketers. So this guy calls up, and I'm not going to imitate his accent, but he says, he's trying to sell something. So he had a very obvious Southeast Asian accent. But he said his name was John Smith. John Smith. And where does he live? He lives in Texas. John. I said to him, "Come on, that's not really your name." No, it's John Smith. No, what's your real name? He told me his real name. It was 12 syllables. I don't know what his name was. So I said, "Why don't you use that name?" I said, there are Jewish people whose names are Yerachmiel and Yecheskel, and they don't use other names. They use Yerachmiel, some Cheskis. But Yerachmiel, use the name. Be proud of your name. A person has to be proud of who they are. Don't call yourself a telemarketer John Smith. They take it off a list. When a person has a name, it's so valuable. But you're convinced by society to forget how special you are. Your name is your special, unique identity. And if there's one thing America wants to steal from you nowadays, it wasn't always like that, but there's one thing Western society, America, wants to steal from you, is how unique and special you are. You don't need to act like them. You don't need to act like them. I'm not knocking anything, but if you bought a certain brand of sweatshirt in the past 2 years, I don't know how long it's existed for, but if you had to get it, I remember when I was younger. What was the alligator? Abercrombie? Lacoste. No? There's a big machlekes. What's more chashiv? Lacoste or Polo? That's definitely true. You have a Ralph Lauren logo. A Yid who hates Yidden and who wants to hide that he's a Yid, Ralph Lauren. But Nebuch, we're trying to get. I don't know who Lacoste is, probably some Yid also. But You have this logo. Is it the alligator or is it the guy playing polo? Which one is it? Which one is it? Or the eagle? The American eagle, is that also one? Oh. You look at yourself in the mirror and just try to see, who am I after all of this? Kimase Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yishavtem Ba Lo Yisasu. Hashem should give you a beautiful Shabbos, a unique Shabbos, a special Shabbos, something, and delicious food, of course. And Zmiras.